So, hi, Kate. Thank you very much for joining me today for the podcast. And would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Lisa, for having me. I'm so grateful to be here. Hi, I'm Kate, and I'm a mindset coach and yoga instructor, as well as Reiki healer and sound healer. Most commonly, in my coaching, I work with people who are looking to make a change in their life, who kind of find themselves stuck in a rut and are going through the typical motions of just going up, going to work, going through the run of the mill of the day. But what they know that they need to change, they find themselves in a little bit of a toxic pattern with no room to grow. So I come in and I help them identify where those toxic patterns are, or if there are toxic relationships that may be holding them back in their lives. And then we'll both work together to change those situations, redefine those relationships. Sometimes it's leaving those relationships completely, or just making a shift in them to work with the other person and accommodate that individual better. And yeah, so that's in a nutshell what I do.
Yeah, I think it's amazing what you do because I think there's so many people out there who really need someone like you. And I would have needed someone like you a few years back, and I guess it would have saved me lots of breakdowns.
Lots of breakdowns and heartbreak, right?
So, when did you decide, or how did you decide to be that kind of coach and that kind of person for others?
Um, I honestly kind of fell into that throughout my life. Um, I specialize mainly in romantic relationships, exiting toxic romantic relationships, transitioning really, because you don't always need to exit from them. And that was something that came to me because I was just put in those situations. I found myself attracted to narcissistic type men. And as an empath, I just kind of got swept away by their charm, which is something that happens with narcissists if you're not aware and you're not looking for those red flags. So through a bunch of trials and tribulations myself and a lot of my own heartbreak, I was able to work through that and acknowledge for myself that those relationships were actually holding me back. And then I made the decision to walk away, and I did that on my own, and I really wish I had someone. I mean, I had my friends and my support system that way, but I didn't have a life coach or a relationship coach. I was seeing a therapist, but I think having a coach would have been very helpful in that situation. And I attracted those kinds of people because from my childhood, oh, it looks like it's coming home. Because in my childhood, I was just kind of in, that was my role in the family. My parents didn't have a very healthy marriage, and so I kind of became the therapist for them. And yeah, that's...
I think it's amazing how you got into it. So it was kind of because you actually went through it. So you probably decided, okay, there must be others, and I want to support them.
Because when I went through my last breakup years ago, so many people, I was going through my yoga training at the same time. So that's what helped me get through that, because I was like, oh, I have something to focus on that's positive. And when you become a spiritual facilitator, you have to start thinking in a different way. So when I was really sad, it was a challenge of oh, I've got to take people on a spiritual journey now. But during that time, everybody, my friends and people that I didn't even know, they would just see me and they would come up to me and they'd be like, "You're really strong." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, I was just looking at you and you look really strong. And maybe they took a class with me, or maybe they just saw me walking down the street. And I was like, okay, there's something to this. And then all of my friends started coming to me with relationship questions. And when they get in arguments or spats with their significant others, they always contact me and they're like, well, how I want to have this conversation, but I don't know how to say it. And I'm like, well, let's talk about it. I was like, everything you just said to me, that's what you need to say to them. So it was very natural. And it was almost just like people were coming to me because they saw that that was something I had to offer. And then once when I saw that it kept happening, I was like, this is just what I should do. Like, this just makes sense. So I'm actually going to take the next step and become an MFT. So I'm going to be looking at schools and starting to apply in the next couple of months. So
That's amazing.
yeah, I'm excited for it. I have one that's like my number one choice, but I don't want to jinx it until I apply.
That sounds really, really cool. And I think also like being a coach and not just a friend, let's say, I think sometimes
Mhm.
yeah, actually to open up to a friend, to a coach, so to a person you actually don't know that much compared to a friend, right?
Yeah. Um, and that's another thing is I'll hang out with some friends and they'll have new people over. And so basically, I'm just meeting these strangers for the first time. And then all of a sudden, we're having some heart to heart outside away from everybody else. And I'm like, how did we even get here? But I do enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun. And I really feel like I feel honored and grateful that people feel so comfortable to talk to me about those things, especially when they first meet me, because I used to be very closed off when I was in my toxic mindset, so to say. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I would just see people and be like, yeah, we're here in the same room. That's great.
Yeah, that's funny because for me it was exactly the same. It was like when I was in a like kind of a bad shape or like I was depressed for myself, I wouldn't actually want to open to others. And I was just I kind of would have needed a coach and I was actually kind of looking for someone, but I couldn't
Mhm.
find one in that moment. And so I was just like closing and shutting off myself completely. So I was like sitting alone, like in my bedroom, and I was like, no, it's shit. Everything is just shit. So kind of, kind of had to like. At least I had my boyfriend as a motivator when the other
Mhm.
stuff in life went shitty, and so I was sitting there alone at home, and he was at work, and so yeah, I was kind of stuck at home alone and he was out, and afterwards when he came back from work he always somehow managed to motivate me again and actually like make me believe in myself again. And I think that's amazing that some people
That's
don't have that
beautiful.
person, I think. So and apart from that, I mean, my boyfriend is amazing, but he can't actually help me in some business decisions. So that's, I think, amazing when
Right.
it comes in to actually have a coach and see some different perspectives.
Mhm. Well, and that's a lot of things too, because people will talk to me and be like, oh, but like I'm dating someone, I don't need a coach. And I was like, couples can have a coach because sometimes you just need that neutral third party to bounce those ideas off of. As one of my clients was talking to me saying that she was resentful of her partner, and she's like, but I don't think resentful's the right word. And so I was like, well, let's tell me about that. Why do you feel resentful? What's coming up? And it turned out that the issue was just that he wasn't supporting her and being present in the way that she wanted. But it was a new relationship. And I was like, there's no need to feel resentful. I was like, because this is new. You guys haven't established that boundary. So this is the perfect time to have that conversation. And it just like, it shouldn't be a fight. It should just be an honest, open conversation. So then that's what she did. And she was like, thank you so much for like hearing me. And she's like, that it went excellent. Like, I feel so good. There was no yelling. It was a civil conversation. And he completely understood. And I was like, see, like if you went in and said, like, if she didn't have that person to bounce that idea off of, she probably would have been in and been like, I resent you because you're not there for me. And it, it could have been a whole fight, and it was easily avoided because she had that support system in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
And then,
sometimes it's just like the help from a different angle, and then already maybe especially in a relationship, I think sometimes it's kind of maybe letting some of the anger out, and then don't actually letting it out on the partner and have someone to talk to. And I think that's really important in life, actually, that you try to uphold your relationship in a good way, and not like, if something bugs you, like come to your partner and then not shout to him or be angry
yeah,
or something.
yeah, it's all just about having open lines of communication in any relationship, whether it's romantic, platonic, or even with your family. And it's just having the scary conversations that we don't really want to have, because we don't want to tell someone that they're upsetting us, because that upsets us to see that they're upset, you know? But that's how we grow.
Like in my coaching, I have and so many people, I get messages from, like many of them are like, it's amazing what you have, and I want to have this, because you have actually a business and you have a partner, and how do you actually manage this, having a business, or in my, yeah, and when it's me, I even have two businesses and a partner and a dog, and I do my hobbies. So people are always like, how do you do that? So do we have any advice actually for especially women who are having a family, how they can deal better with actually the balance of work and having time for the family?
Yeah, I would say honestly, everything starts with you. So it's important to carve out, even if it's just 20 minutes in a day for yourself, to give yourself time just for you before you have to like go and do your job, before you have to come back to the family or the significant other, whatever it is. Just give yourself 20 minutes, 10 minutes. If you can give yourself more, I take an hour to 2.5 hours in the morning for myself if I can. It depends on how early I get up. So first and foremost, having that personal time. And then during that time, you can use it to start prioritizing your day, of noting what you need to do at work and what needs to get done for your family. And then when you're at work, just focusing on those things. And then leave work at work, because so many of us have a tendency to take work home.
Mm-hmm.
And I was guilty of this for years. I would always take work home, and I'd be like, I know we have dinner and we're going to go and have dinner. And then we're going to come home, watch TV, and I need to send emails and like type up some reports and send them out before we go to bed. And I know that's going to be like at 1 a.m., but I need to do it. So it's setting the boundaries, not letting yourself do that, and being fully present when you're with your family. Because with family, friends, and the people that love and support you in life are way more important than any job, any project that you're going to have, because that project isn't going to last forever. That job will come and go. And I mean, people can't always be in your life forever. So you should really make sure that you're going to make the most of it when you're around them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you said that many, they actually take the work home, and I think that's kind of a problem in many businesses, or like with many business owners, or with people who have a job that's really, really tough, and they need to work a lot of hours. And so, do we have any tips for those people actually, how they can make the cut after work a bit easier for them, because sometimes, let's say someone is at work and something upsets them, and sometimes they get home and, well, at home they are in a bad mood, for example. So do you have any tips for those people who might be in a job or like had a bad day at work, like to not let it out actually on the family members?
Um, yeah, I think if you have a really long job, like working long hours, and it's very demanding, it's important to give yourself little snippets of time, just like 5-minute breaks here and there, so you can allow yourself to decompress just the tiniest bit, and that'll help you. So when things start to pile up, you don't feel like you're being buried underneath a rock. And coming home to with your family, just be open. Just like as soon as you come home and you see each of them, just be like, hey, letting you know I had a really bad day at work. Like my energy is just down. I don't mean to snap, but this is my mindset. Just so you guys know where I'm coming from. I ask that you be respectful, and I want to keep things quiet, or I'm going to go to bed in, an hour and a half. So please just be mindful. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having that conversation with your loved ones and your family, because if they truly do love you and support you, they will understand, and maybe they'll even be like, oh, well, what happened? If you want to talk about it, I'm here. Um, Rather than just coming in and be like, I hate everything, which is something I used to do. I will admit that. I'm not proud of that, but I'm not that person anymore.
Yeah, I think also yoga really helps you with that, right? To actually be more grounded and
hmm
like be mindful of your actions.
Yeah, one of my old coworkers, she was actually one of my bosses back, 5 years ago. And I was giving her a yoga session, and we hadn't seen each other in about a year. And she just like looked at me and she's like, you look really good. And I was like, thanks. I was like, I'm wearing eyeshadow today. I don't always. And she was like, no, your eyes just look peaceful. Like you look at peace when I look at your eyes. And I was like, that says so much coming from you, because she saw me at one of my most stressful times where I would just like come into work at 9, not leave until 9. If I was lucky, eating meals at my desk just to get all the work done. So I was like, wow, it's nice to see that other people can see all this change that's happened. But I feel so much better now with yoga, making that a regular staple in my life. Uh, and that's something else I would suggest for people if they have a really busy, demanding life. Not necessarily going to yoga, but finding some sort of physical activity, some sort of physical workout, whether that's just going to the gym, lifting weights. So play to yours. Like, I'm not going to come in and say, oh, Lisa, you should do yoga if that's not what you want to do. So it's honoring yourself and making yourself a priority. And once you do that, you will be way more present for everyone else in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's totally true. And also like you said, if you actually have a activity, so like a sporty activity,
Uh-huh.
I think it's also really grounding. And because, for example, if you would even manage to actually after work go to a workout like yoga or whatever sports you like, and then go back at home, I think that really helps, because you are more grounded and you are present. And actually, by, for example, doing yoga, you don't really even have this time to think about your job, because you're in this yoga class or in this weightlifting or whatever class.
Yeah, it's giving yourself another environment to put yourself in. So it's like once you leave work, you've already left it, and then you're giving yourself a nice transition from work onto your next thing, um, which speaks miles as to how much it can help you.
And when we go to my audience, for example, because I really want to help perfectionist people, like people like I used to be a few years ago, like people
Oh,
work a lot and they think nothing gets done because it just needs to look amazing and it's not perfect yet. And for example, I myself, right, like a few years back, I was sitting there on one task and it took so long just because I wanted to make it perfect. And then
mhm.
even it took like sometimes it took like even nights to finish stuff just to make it right. So do you have actually any tips for those people who have, well, a job or a business and a partner to just stop kind of and not trying to make everything right because they need some time with their partner?
Oh my gosh, that like, I completely relate to you on that. I lived in the idea of perfectionism for years, and it almost drove me insane because I was trying to be the perfect girlfriend to my boyfriend. And I was like, well, what would he like? What should I be doing for him? I'm like, oh, I'm not like being good enough. And so I would agonize over that. And then I would just put it into my work of like, okay, maybe I can't be the perfect girlfriend, but I can make this project super perfect. I'm going to make a nice, template, and I'm going to have it scheduled, all made. And I would agonize over every single detail, trying to make it super perfect, make everything clear and legible. Because I was working in entertainment, so I had a wide variety of people looking at it. So you want to make things clear and simple as much as possible. And I would do the same thing. I would just get lost in my work for hours, and I'd be like, this one project, like this schedule is now taking me 6 hours, and it should have been done in 2. So I would say strike the word perfect from your vocabulary, because when you think about it, nothing is perfect because we as human beings are inherently flawed, and a flawed being can't make something perfect. And your idea of what's perfect could be very different than what I think is perfect. Um, like an example, maybe the perfect date for you is going on the beach, just taking a nice walk on a sunset, whereas for me, it might be doing aerial yoga and seeing how comfortable they are there. Um, so for me to say like, oh, I had the perfect date talking to you and describing it, you'd be like, that sounds like fun, but it's not like perfect. So release release the attachment you have to perfectionism, because that will loosen up so much anxiety and free up so much mental capacity, because you won't be worrying about trying to make something perfect. You won't be stressing over getting the report done perfectly before your meeting. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, cool. I really like those tips. And um, yeah, so it's really cool. And like we already talked about before we actually started recording, it's like sometimes you just need to actually put some words out there as well that sometimes other people wouldn't use actually. And
Mm-hmm.
talking about actually like even about like putting makeup on and all that stuff. And I think that's also like some kind of illusion of being perfect, that for example if you don't you like use words like I just say it now, like shit or fuck or whatever, and maybe you think that people would accept you more if you don't use those words, or it's not okay. And maybe you think if you put on more makeup because your skin isn't perfect or whatever you think, then people would accept you more, or it will get you this job and or this client. I think it's total nonsense. So, what
Agree.
would you actually? Yeah. What? So, what's your opinion about that?
I agree so much with you on that one. I think a lot of us, I was going to say fall in that trap, and I was like, it's not necessarily a trap, but a lot of us go down that avenue in life. Um, I played the part where I was working in corporate and I would full on makeup every day, dress up and go to my office. And I very much felt like I was a kid playing dress up because it didn't feel normal to me. I didn't feel like I could be authentic. I didn't feel like I could speak up in the meetings and represent myself the way that I wanted to, because I was like, I'm wearing this like costume that isn't who I am, and I feel like I need to be prim and proper. So embrace who you are, like be true to who you are. There might be company policies where you have a dress code. That's fine. Like, I'm not asking anyone to like break the dress code, but be who you are. Say the things you want to say. A lot of people identify with me because of when I drop swear words like the F-bombs on my posts, and they don't think it's hilarious, but they see that I'm real and they know that they can relate to me. And I would do that in my corporate meetings, and sometimes like they didn't care, and other times they'd be like, you can't say that, so and so's here. And I'd be like, well shit, I just did, so can't take it back. But yeah, it's all about being true to yourself and not letting other people's opinions sway you. And I know that if you're empathic, you have tendencies to want to people please because you can start to feel other people's energies. So you want to accommodate them, but that's just going to take you further away from yourself and what your own personal purpose is. And once you just start embracing yourself, you'll start to see the people who actually appreciate you for who you are versus the people who just appreciate you or use you for the work that you do. Because ultimately, those aren't the people that you want to keep around in your life. So being the most authentic version to yourself is only going to bring you the right kind of people.
Yeah, that's totally true. And well, coming to saying these words, some people might don't want to use. Would you actually tell us about your amazing gift? Yeah, like your amazing training you did for others.
Yes, I guess I'll just say these words since they're a part of my title. So I have a free masterclass up that's on my Instagram. It's also on my website at eipl.healing.com. And it's a course called Say Fuck It and Love Yourself. And it's comprised of 5 different steps. So the first step is quite literally say fuck it, like all the negative things in your life, the things that are draining you, whether it's your job or maybe the fact that you can't get the promotion you want. Just say fuck it to all that stuff and start telling yourself that you love yourself, even if you don't feel it, even if you don't actually think that you do, because the more you say it and the more you get in the habit of doing it, the more you will start to believe it eventually. And then the second step is envision it. So what is that goal? What does that look like to say fuck it and to start loving yourself? What does that bring into your life? What does it feel like? And the 4th step is to hear it. So really giving yourself the space to, 1, hear what your goal really is, but then also hear all the things we don't want to hear that we're telling ourselves. Like, I'm not going to be able to get the job. No one's going to want to work with me. Hear those things, figure out why they keep coming up, because they're rooted in some sort of fear or some sort of past trigger or possible trauma. So we're going to have to dive in and explore that before moving forward. And then the 4th step, once we do that and diagnose those triggers and where they're coming from, we move into the 4th step, which is my favorite step. It's experience it. And that's taking your goals and breaking it down into manageable steps so that you can do at least one thing towards your goal every single day. And you'll start to feel more productive. You'll see that your goal is actually in sight versus being like, oh, there's this thing I want to do, but I don't know how to start it. So we'll actually create all those steps. And Then the fifth step is mentorship, because what we've been talking about throughout today is it's helpful to have that other person, a neutral third party, when you're going through something really stressful, to be your support and to just keep you motivated. Be like, I know it's a really bad day and it's okay to feel bad. It's okay to cry, but do this for 20 minutes and then we're going to get up and move. So sometimes you need that. So that's what my master class is, and that's a very shortened, truncated version of what my coaching program is. It's the same, it's called Safe Bucket and Love Yourself, and it's a 90-day program where we really dive in, and each month we really dig into every step each week. And the first 2 weeks we'll create a calendar that will outline every step for the remaining 90 days.
Cool, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anyone now wants to grab this amazing masterclass, then make sure to check out the show notes, or if you are watching on YouTube, make sure to actually check out the description, because I will put a link to this amazing masterclass, and then you definitely need to register for this.
Yes, I'd love to have all of you, and I hope that you take it. And I'd just love to hear your feedback. And at the end of the masterclass, there's an option for you to schedule a free coaching session with me. So definitely want to take advantage of that.
Cool. So let's get to the last three questions, and then yeah. So I'm really excited to see what you will say, because these are the three questions I ask everyone, and it's amazing to see the different answers.
Okay.
So the first one would actually be, is there any certain resource, like let's say a book or a podcast or a YouTube channel, it can even be, you think that is like kind of a must watch or must read?
I've told so many of my friends about this book. So there's a book, if you're an empath, it's called the Empath Survival's Guide by Judith Olaf, and she's a psychotherapist and also a empath herself. And she talks in that book, she breaks it down to the different types of empaths that there are in the world, because you can be influenced by people, animals, plants, planets, and sometimes a combination of all of those things. And she talks about how to identify which one you are, and also how to start shielding yourself so that you're not absorbing in other people's energy, and that you're able to protect yourself a little bit more. And that book I find so helpful, especially if you are engaged in a romantic relationship that is a little bit toxic, or maybe someone is a narcissist in that relationship. So I definitely would suggest reading that book.
Cool. Thanks for the suggestion. And then let's go to, do you have a motto or a quote that inspires you every day?
Safe bucket and love yourself. Honestly, that's my motto. That's why I named it after. That's why I named my coaching program after it. Because again, I was kind of agonizing over trying to find the perfect name for it, and I changed it a few different times. I was like, oh, it's let go. Oh, that doesn't make sense, because what are you letting go of? And then I was just like, you know what, safe, fuck this, like, love yourself. And I was like, that's it. That's what it is. That's what everyone needs to do.
Yeah, that's cool how you came up with it, because sometimes you just spend too much time on getting this perfect name.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So and last thing, is there anything, if you had a magic wand, that you would want to give out in the world, or actually give people, so they can actually have the life they dream of?
Such a good question. There's so many ways that I could answer that. I think the biggest gift the biggest thing that I'd want to do for everybody, give them the space, give them the gift of personal awareness and the space and the time. Yeah, if I could give everyone more time to themselves, I would. And be like, you just need to go and meditate, just be by yourself for a little bit. So that way they can become more aware of themselves and their environments and start to almost pull back and see their life play out almost as though they're watching a movie before they respond to it.
Cool. That's a really cool answer, and I think it really makes sense to actually being able to give people more time, because like especially now it's sometimes for people the life is a bit stressful and they have so many triggers with all these phones and messages. So cool. I love your answer.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. It was lovely talking to you.
Yeah, thank you for being on the show. And to everyone who is listening, make sure to check out the show notes or the description of the video and get this amazing masterclass.
Awesome. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please message me. Let me know what you thought about it. Yeah. And thank you so much, Lisa.